Tonight, we talked about Mashiach, redemption, answering your questions. Hope you find it very relevant, very practical. So Becca raised a question. Basically, you were asking about the process of redemption. How does it unfold? Based on what's written in the scriptures, that was basically the question. Okay, great. So how will the redemption unfold is a great question. The sages in the Talmud discuss it, and they say there are two options, which they say based on a verse, which means the verse in English is, in its time, I will hasten it. Is the redemption in its time? Is the redemption going to be hasten? And the sages say it depends on us. If we merit, redemption will come more quickly, earlier than the final hour. If we do not merit, in any case, the redemption is going to come. It will come in its time. With this perspective, they can also resolve the conflicts of different verses that express different seeming types of redemption. Like we speak of redemption coming with the clouds from above. Sounds like in a very glorious way. We speak of the Redeemer coming on a donkey. That seems like in a very, not so glorious way. So again, whenever we have something like that, we always go back to the same paradigm. If we merit, it's coming early. If we merit, it's coming with the clouds. If we don't merit, it'll still come. It'll come in its designated time that was designated before creation. And it will seem like a poorer, at least initially poor version of the story. That person could say, if in the end of the day, let's pretend the D-date, the 0 hour for redemption is today, April 30th, 2023, at precisely 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. 15 minutes. That's exciting. All right. Well, if I know it's coming in 15 minutes, that's exciting. I don't have any of this push and pressure to bring it early. It's coming in 15 minutes. Oh, we're told. There's always a pressure, a push, a desire to bring it early. Because, as I'm saying with the other prophecies, the clouds versus the donkey, for example, classical one, the redemption that will be brought early is completely different qualitatively than the redemption that will come in its time. So since when we bring it early, we of course bringing it early is terrific from a perspective of time. If I can bring the redemption today and redemption is supposed to come in a week from now, why do we want another week of suffering in this world? How many more casualties will there be? How many more people will be abused and tormented and hurt and in pain and in stress and in discomfort? A whole week of 8 billion mankind more or less suffering? Of course we want to bring it early. Now the person can say, it's coming in a week. That's good enough for me. I can relax. It's not just the time, though the time is very significant. It's also, as we're saying, the quality of redemption. Because when we bring the redemption, when we're bringing it with our merits, basically what that means is we are so transforming this world because of our love of God, that God can respond to all of our merit, can respond to all of the good we've done, can respond to all of our love for him, and he could show us that same love as well. And he could express to us that same showering of goodness. That's why, based on if it comes early, if it comes through our merits, or if it comes in its appointed time, not through our merits, like we did it, unfortunately, mankind flopped, God forbid, it really will determine, will the initial redemption be more natural or more miraculous? Have in the prophets many amazing, miraculous events that are going to happen by redemption. But we're told not necessarily will all those amazing things happen in the beginning of redemption. Redemption is going to be in stages. So right away, of course, there won't be negative. There won't be pain, sickness, fear, jealousy. There'll be plenty for all. There'll be a peaceful world. There'll be a world led by the Redeemer. All that will happen right away. But will the barren trees bear fruit right away? Will the nature of the animals change or revert to their original nature, and the lion and the lamb will lie together? Those things will happen. Absolutely. Literally, they will happen. They also have many spiritual levels of meaning, many mystical levels of meaning, many allegoric levels of meaning, and they also are meant in the most literal sense. So the answer is, depends. If we bring in the redemption early through our merits, then we right away enter into an era not only of world peace and world plenty, world prosperity, but also an era of miracle. And if we don't bring in the redemption through our merits, it still can be the redemption. It will still be world peace, world plenty, world prosperity, still be a time when we won't need to have fears, we won't need to have pressures. Life will be as we can't even imagine, because we've never known it besides with all of the negative trappings that define life as we've experienced it for 5,783 years. Will be a world of absolute good, but it will not be a miraculous world. And what will happen is, so here we have all the negativity gone, the world being run as a world serving God, whole mankind invested together in getting closer and closer to God. And as such, everyone is going to be giving God more and giving God more and giving God more from love. And all of those actions done with all of that love in the initial stage of this natural version of the redemption will elicit that God will be able to respond from our love with his love, and his love will be expressed in all the miracles. So in the end of the day, all those miracles will happen, and everything in the scriptures will absolutely happen. Everything in Tanakh, everything in Torah, which doesn't have so much, has a little, everything in the prophets, which is awash with details about redemption, they will all literally happen. They will also again happen allegorically, and they will happen mystically and spiritually, but they also will all happen literally. There literally is a fish, the Leviathan fish. There literally is the meat of the wild ox, the shor habar. There literally is wine that's been saved from the beginning of time. And we're going to eat all of that at the Messianic feast that will happen right away in the beginning. That is all literally going to happen. It also has myriads of levels of mystical, esoteric, Kabbalistic meaning, but also is a literal truth. So anything written in Tanakh, in Torah, in the prophets and the writings has to be expressed literally, as well as on many, many other levels of interpretation. So the only question is, are we going to initially have all this nature bending, nature defying, or will that only be later? And that's dependent on us. If the redemption comes through our merit, we'll start off with a merit. If it doesn't come through our merit, but it comes not because of us, but almost despite us, God forbid, that error will happen later, but it will definitely happen. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did pretty much, because I came from a certain background, and it's just like everything's going to be boom, and everything. And I just thought, I almost don't see that happening in some ways. So yeah,
the
thank
boom
you.
might happen. We're already in the process, meaning the Lubavitcher Rebbe already in 1991 and 1992 spoke of us entering the world, entering the days of the redemption, the days of Mashiach. So the world's been progressing since 1991, 1992. Now we're 2023. That's 30 years ago. We've gone through a gradual process over the past 30 some years. And as the Rebbe said then, the spiritual energy of the world changed. The spirituality of the redemption was already out there in the 1990s and has only gotten stronger since. So what difference does it make what the spirituality is? I mean, we're very physical people. Well, it does make a difference. And that could, for example, be why there are so many Noahides now, more than ever before. Maybe because the spiritual energy of redemption is out there. So people in the world that are more sensitive are picking it up and they're turning to God. And it's true for all of us. And all of us, as we're awash with the spiritual energy of redemption already for 30 years, it means like our ability has changed and we can do things people couldn't do before. Like, for example, Bob Travis speaks, this was a much earlier talk in the 70s, that when we have this energy of redemption already there, even though in our physical eyes, we're still in Chicago or wherever else you are, but our ability to trust God will change. Rebbe said this again some 20 years before he said that we reached this point, that when the complete redemption spiritual energy is already in the world, but on the physical plane, we still are in exile, which perfectly describes our current situation of some 30 years, we will have different spiritual abilities because the energy of redemption is out there. So our spiritual abilities will be far broader. And specifically, we'll have to focus on this idea of trusting God, and that our ability to trust God will be far vaster than it's ever been in all history because of the Mashiach redemption energies. Becca?
Yeah, well, you brought up that it has been 30 years since the Lubavitcher Rebbe said that, we were entering the age of Mashiach. Okay, but that made me think of the year of Jubilee then. And so, but then, no, that wouldn't mean it would not necessarily fall then.
No.
Okay, never mind. I
understand how you went that direction, but yeah. Anyone else? Any other questions on this very, of course, significant topic on
I've
understanding
often heard
this
it. I've
marriage.
often heard it said that it's going to be really obvious, right? That this is where Christians and Noahides and Jews have a disagreement, shall we say? Because it's like, well, they say the Messiah's come and it's through grace and it's this whole other thing, and then it's so funny when you look into and point and say like, so and so is president. It's going to be that obvious. The third temple is either built or it's not. It's going to be that obvious. And so that's always just been like earth shattering for me. If there's anything else you want to elaborate there.
You were breaking up a bit, so it was a little hard to hear you. I don't know why. Maybe it was just on my end. I was a little broken up what you were saying. But you're saying from the Christian perspective, the redemption could come and people wouldn't know? I'm not familiar.
Well, that's just it. It's like, from the Christian perspective, it's like, well, because JC was sacrificed on the cross, it was like the first coming, right? And then they're always talking about the eight, but at the same time, it's real obvious that things are not fixed. So there's obviously going to be a second coming. And then that's going to be when all of these miracles happen and whatnot. And Jews obviously think, well, no, Mashiach hasn't come at all, because if he had, we would know. It'd be really obvious.
Right. Absolutely right. So yes. So as I was saying to Becca, there is the concept of this. In other words, the world will both naturally morph toward redemption, and at the same time, ultimately, there's going to be a big bang, because, like you said, there's a temple that's going to descend from heaven and go on Mount Moriah, and there's going to be the Redeemer, Mashiach. And world Jewry is all going to go to Israel, all 15 million of them. Now, the resurrection will come in stages, and but we're told on the very, very beginning of the complete revelation of the redemption, all of the holy, all of the righteous from all past generations will immediately arise. We learned this based on the Talmud, that the Talmud discusses when we have the complete revelation of the redemption and the temple and offering sacrifices, and how will we know? Well, you'll ask Aaron. What do you mean you'll ask Aaron? How will Aaron be there? On day one? Yeah, right away. On day one, we're going to right away have Moses and Aaron and anyone that in the past sacrificed for the redemption is not there. They sacrificed for redemption. They shouldn't be here by the redemption. So yes, there'll be such obvious things like Moses and Aaron suddenly among us, like Mashiach, like all the Jews streaming toward Israel, like the third temple. No, it can't happen. And you got confused and missed it in the news that day, for sure. But at the same time, over these past 30 years, there's also a natural morphing, which means as the energy of redemption saturates the world becomes a nicer place, a kinder place, a better place, a place where goodness and kindness is more and more and more overt, where the world is sort of morphing into a messianic world. So it's a synergy of the natural movement and then, of course, ultimately a supernatural bang. Ruth, whose hand was raised for quite a while?
It's muted.
Oh, and if you're talking, you're muted, so I don't hear you.
Okay, now
I hear you, yes.
Okay. Well, yes, I am confused too, because Talmud, as far as I know, I can't remember where in Talmud, says that Mashiach is at the doors of Edom. So if he is there like leopard, so how?
Sanhedrin, page 98.
Oh, okay. So how come he's there? Because he's
or 99 already, 98, 99, right there.
Yeah, somewhere there. And supposedly also that Joseph in Egypt, he's typifying Moshiach. So if he's typifying Moshiach, Joseph, his life in Egypt, then he is at the doors of Rome. So if he is at the doors of Rome, how come he's not here yet?
Okay, so the Talmud then was discussing in their times where redemption, the Redeemer was. There was a certain sage that wanted to meet the Redeemer. And he was told he's sitting at the gates outside Rome. He's sitting among the poor. He's ill, as all of them are ill. He's opening and closing his bandages. He doesn't open them all at one time. That would be easier because he wants to be ready any second to redeem. So he opens one and closes it just in case. And it says a great sage, Rabbi Yehoshua, the son of Levi, traveled there to meet the Redeemer, and he saw the Mashiach and he recognized him and he said, "When are you coming?" He said, today, oh my gosh, today, what great news. We've suffered so long. He's so excited. And the day came and went and nothing happened. He comes back the next day. He's like, what happened? Quoting a verse. The verse is, today, if you will hearken to my voice. So, of course, it's today. It's always potentially today, if you will hearken to my voice.
Okay, so and still, yeah, my I think my whatever I have in my mind is not gonna get clear, but
right. So, in other words,
are
that
we?
piece of Talmud, just to try to clarify more, that piece of Talmud was correct. It wasn't saying an eternal statement that always, if Rome is destroyed, if Rome is built, if Rome is a little village, we don't care. Always
Right.
that's his spot and he's stuck there. No, at this moment, for whatever reason, because that was where maybe because that's where the political power was, the financial power, that's where the energy of the world was, that's where he's hanging out. But we
Okay.
say not that he is, nobody's looking for him in the gates of Rome. That was then, that's not now. But always in every generation, there always is someone who is the Redeemer, who's waiting in the wings, ready, because again, today, if you will hearken to my voice, as Mashiach quoted the verse, if we're ready, it's coming, meaning the world went through millenniums. They're actually 2 millenniums at a time. The first 2,000 years from creation, we're told, were 2,000 years of chaos, where the world could not possibly have had redemption. It wasn't ready for it at all. The next 2,000 years, we're told, were 2,000 years of Torah, when Torah penetrated the world and changed and shifted the energy of the world. So after 2,000 such years of Torah being studied and taught and preached and practiced, the world's energy changed and changed and changed until it's ready for redemption. And then at that point, from 4,000 years from creation, the world now entered the time when it's possible for the Redeemer to arrive. And every day since then, now we're in almost 1,700 some years later, every day since then, it's sort of like the metaphor for it is, this isn't my metaphor, but the metaphor for it would be like simple villager is coming to, he never is in a synagogue, but he's coming, it's a high holiday, it's Rosh Hashanah, and he's in synagogue, and the prayers are quite long, and he's a simple guy, and he's getting hungry, and he's thinking of that good piece of meat that doesn't usually get meat, but it's Rosh Hashanah, that's cooking for him back, wherever he's staying, getting hungry. And the whole synagogue starts singing some sort of sad, more contemplative tune. And he's like, yeah, we're all so hungry. We're all singing. We're so sad. We're so hungry. But then suddenly the prayer shifted and everyone's singing this very joyous tune. He's like, wait, what are we all so happy? Oh, right. The longer it cooks, the better it's going to taste. So yeah, I'm waiting a long time, but it's going to be so good because it's going to be so soft and tender. So we're all so happy. So we're singing this happy tune. Then they shift to a sad, more contemplative tune. And he's like, what? Oh, but we're hungry. We don't care how good it's going to taste. And so, of course, the prayers go. More contemplative tunes, more joyous tunes. And he keeps, yo-yoing back and forth in his head. This is all singing about the meat. Yeah, we're so hungry. Yeah, it's tasting even better. Yeah, we're so hungry. Yeah, it's tasting even better. At a certain point, he got fed up. When the congregations went to a happy tune, he screamed out, I don't care how good it's going to taste. We just need to like have it now. And that is, of course, a parable. I don't know if it ever happened. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. But it's a very, clear expression of this idea that every single day, every single good deed done changes the dynamics of the world and creates the ability for God to more and more be expressed in this physical reality. And that's redemption. Redemption means the permanent expression of the essence of God. And when the world was first created 5,783 years ago, that was impossible. God could not be revealed in this world. The world couldn't handle him. If God had been revealed, the world would cease to exist. It would have just completely reverted to nothingness from the intensity of God energy. And good deed by good deed, service of God by service of God, the fabric of the world is changing. And most specifically with Torah, we're told. As Torah is studied, as Torah is practiced, as Torah is studied, as Torah is spoken, the fabric of the world is changing. And more, the impossible is happening. God can be and is revealed through the physical. So every single day we've been waiting, because as I said, the Lubavitcher said this some 30 years ago, and we were done. We just have to like push him through the threshold, so to speak. He's right here, right here. What has happened in the past 30 years? A lot of service of God, a lot of study Torah, a lot of belief, a lot of self-sacrifice. And every single thing, every single act of every single person is changing the world. So the redemption that comes is far greater than could have been 5 years ago, 25 years ago, 250 years ago. But at the same time, as that simple villager said, who cares? We don't care how much better it's going to taste. We just want it. We are done. We are fed up. Exile is way too painful, way too stressful, way too horrible. And we just want redemption now. Yes, every day we wait, it'll be even better. Yes, everything we're doing is making it better and better and better. And we just need it now, right? And that's sort of where we're holding. We just need it now. But everything we're doing really, again, there's so many metaphors to express this concept. Every single thing we're doing really is changing the reality and making it happen. So going back to Becca's initial question of the process versus the boom, we're in a process and ultimately there'll be a big boom, but that doesn't take away the significance of the process. And the process, step by step, is what allows there to be ultimately that, and suddenly, like Natalie said, we're not going to miss it. No, a third temple is coming down from the heavens. You're not going to miss that. World Jewry is going to Israel. You're not going to miss that. But those big movements are created by myriads and myriads of actions of people from the beginning of time until now. And every single action is like another little step, another little step, another little step, another little step. And then finally, who knows who's going to merit to do that last one that suddenly we tipped over the scale completely, broke through the barriers completely, have accepted, have studied, have yearned, have self-sacrificed completely. And that's it. And then it's just completely revealed. So now, when, in a sense, the energy is there, so you can all tap in on it, but it's not apparent to everyone, only to those that are really looking, you have a golden opportunity to really take advantage and help others take advantage and share your knowledge with others, because this is a very special time when we're pushing and doing those last efforts to create the complete redemption. Ruth?
Yes, adding to the subject, another question to the same subject about Mashiach. I read it, I don't know, it was Talmud or any other books, that it says that Mashiach is gonna be like Moses' birth, miraculous, it's gonna be like a miracle thing. Like Moshe was rescued by the daughter of the pharaohs, right, at the river. Then Moshiach also is going to be the same way. So if that is the case, if we are aware of that, that is going to be, humans, we cannot predict or we can't see it, because the rest of the world couldn't see what the birth of Moshe was a miracle, and it was with a purpose.
So I'm not sure what you're asking, but there's a lot of connection between Moses, and Mashiach, the Redeemer.
Right.
The sages say first Redeemer is the final Redeemer. The first Redeemer was Moses. Moshe was the first Redeemer. The final Redeemer is Mashiach.
Right.
Ultimate Redeemer. Now we can say, what does that mean? They're obviously not the same person. They have a different name. They actually have a different lineage. Moshe was from the tribe of the Levites. He was a descendant of Levi. His brother was Aaron. So he was from the priestly tribe. And Mashiach is from the tribe of Judah, the tribe of kings. So they clearly can't be the same person. They have a totally different lineage. And yet it's clearly stated the first Redeemer is the final Redeemer. So we're told that there is a synergy of the soul of Moses and the soul of Mashiach, the Redeemer, which means when Moses, 2,000 some years ago, led the Jews, 3,300 some years ago. That was a bit off. 3,320, about 25 years ago, when Moses led the Jews out of Egypt, his soul already was fused with the soul of Mashiach, the Redeemer. And conversely, when we have the ultimate redemption, the soul of Mashiach will also have with it fused the soul of Moses. So therefore, the first Redeemer and the final Redeemer are the same because both of them are a fusion of these two souls, of the energy of Moses plus the energy of Mashiach. And by the ultimate redemption, the energy of Mashiach plus the energy of Moses. To take it a step further, every ultimate leader of the Jewish people contains within himself the energy of Moses. It says in the Talmud that Moses never died. Well, that's a little hard to understand because we also clearly have his passing described in the Torah. And we even know the date. It means literally his soul. That literally the soul of Moses continues in the next leader of the Jewish people. And then when that leader passes away, goes into the next leader. And then when that leader passes away, goes into the next leader. So from the beginning of time until now, the energy of Moses has always been within the soul of the leader of the generation. But that Moses energy only enters when the person becomes the leader, not by birth. It's not when they're born. It's only when the previous leader passes away, like, for example, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, when his father-in-law passed away in 1950, that was the moment when he received that soul energy. But until then, he didn't have it. And for some, almost 50 years of his life, he didn't have it. It was only as the leader. When he becomes a leader, then that soul energy of the leader of the generation is then passed on to the new leader of the generation. So I'm not familiar with what you're saying.
Well, actually, yes, I didn't explain myself.
Yeah, the only I can think of, are you talking about the piece of Talmud where it discusses by the destruction with the cow mooing and the Arab explaining?
No, actually, what I'm going is what I think Rebecca was talking about. I'm not sure who was saying that based on the scriptures like the Barim 18, that our Heavenly Father was going to raise another prophet like Moshe, and to him we must listen. So what I'm saying is that if we must listen to him, that means no one can recognize him. I mean, no one can be, like we were talking about before, that it's gonna be something obvious, but
no. You're pulling in different things. That verse, to him we must listen, is not referring to the Redeemer. That's referring to any prophet.
Okay.
That any prophet that comes after Moses, has to be, there's a concept of whatever. I mean, it's a complicated discussion, but in certain situations, what the prophet tells you, you have to listen to and not weigh or analyze or say, am I supposed to be doing this or am I not supposed to be doing this? To him you shall listen. In the Hebrew, the words are elav tishma'u. To him you should listen. This is a biblical
because the scripture says very clear. He speaks about one, and we have many prophets. In that case, he will say, "I will raise some more."
No. That's not how the verse is understood. It's understood as prophets.
Okay, thank
Absolutely. You. Sure. There is.
I don't want to be sassy. I don't want to be sassy. Just my brain, it keeps
No. I don't
back
mind.
And forth.
I don't mind. There is a place in the Talmud discussing by the destruction of the temple, the birth. It was at the birth of the Redeemer, and the Lubavitcher hung with a cow. It's a whole story. Again, if you don't know, I don't want to go into it because it'll just take a long time to explain the story. Right. But the Lubavitcher discusses this and says, does this mean that at the exact moment of the destruction, a newborn baby was born with the energy of the Redeemer? That doesn't make any sense, because that would mean for another, I don't know, give him 25, 30 years till he grows up and can redeem the Jewish people. That's very disheartening news. But at the moment of redemption, at the moment of destruction, we don't need a baby. We need a Redeemer. So the Rebbe says, no, it doesn't mean his birth, literally. It means the intensification of his energy. That just like on your birth, your mazal, like we say, mazel tov, which is this expression, but actually has a spiritual meaning, that these higher soul powers are now coming down to you. So at this moment for the Redeemer, exactly by the destruction of the temple, was also the renewal of his soul powers, in a sense, his birth, not meaning as a baby, but his renewal of his powers to redeem the Jews. So in that piece of Talmud, there's a whole discussion about birth. That's the only thing I could think of that has to do in the Talmud with birth and the Redeemer. But that verse, no, that verse had nothing to do specifically with the Redeemer. Any other questions? Okay, so what Ruth is bringing out by her question is really expressing that, yes, all of these verses, always important to learn them in the context of what we call the oral Torah. Meaning there's the written Torah, the scriptures, the 24 books of Torah, the books of prophecy, the books of the writings, all those are 24 books of what we call the written Torah. And then when Moses was on Mount Sinai for those first set of 40 days and 40 nights, not only got the written Torah, he also got all the commentary, all the explanation. What do these words mean? Which is what we call the oral Torah. We call it the oral Torah because originally it was not written down. It was orally transmitted from generation to generation. Shortly after the destruction of the Second Temple, the leader of the Jews at that time, Reb Yehuda Hanasi, Judah the Prince, he's like, we got to write this down because it's such a time of chaos. It's such a time of torment for the Jewish people that if it just remains purely oral, they're going to forget. Until now, we had the ability to sit and for years study, and each one of us personally contained all of this knowledge and then passed it on to the next generation, who passed on to the next generation. But we see how the way this world is going, that's not going to be happening to our people. We're going to be scattered, dispersed. We're not going to have the clarity of mind and of time and of focus. We're going to forget. We got to write this down. But of course, we're not supposed to write this down. But we have no choice because if we don't write it down, it's going to be lost. So we're going to write it down cryptically. And that first cryptic writing is what's referred to as the Mishnah, like Cliff Note. That was good for a while because you read the Mishnah and that reminded you of all the stuff you had knew by heart. And that lasted them for a while. And then as the generations continued, that wasn't good enough anymore. And then we have the whole Talmud, which is really dissertations and dissertations on the words of the Mishnah. What do they really mean? Which, of course, is giving much vast knowledge, vast amounts of the oceans of the oral Torah that then become recorded in the Talmud, crossing many generations. On one page of Talmud, you can have generations intersecting as they comment on previous and continue, and then comment on previous and continue for many generations. And that is the Talmud. Every word of scripture, we always have to find what does it mean as per the explanation within the oral law, because otherwise we could totally misunderstand. And then from that initial misunderstanding could continue on and on and on and on. And thank God, a lot's written down, a lot's translated into many languages. So there's a lot of accessible information for all of us out.
Yes, that's where we all get lost. The people that we come from, the nations, that's where we get lost because we have the scriptures, but we don't have the explanation.
Exactly.
So I do understand, how we get lost. And I learned that I just have to wait and keep reading.
You are exactly correct. Exactly true.
Thank you for your patience.
No, it's so many people just,
I appreciate your knowledge.
No, but it's so many people. You're sincere and you're reading the words and, oh, how was I supposed to know that's what they meant? How was I supposed to understand the context? How was I supposed to understand that's what we say. Torah can only be studied within the context of the oral law, because otherwise it just will be grossly misunderstood. And in terms of the legal, in terms of the midrashic, the allegorical, the storyline, on every single level, it's always has to be within that context. I always feel that Noahides have a very special mission in terms of the redemption. And the reason I feel that is because, well, first of all, it's very interesting because Lubavitcher Rebbe tremendously intensified the reality of redemption and the urgency for us to bring the redemption in the early 80s, at exactly the same time when he introduced to the world the concept of reaching out to the world with the laws of Noah. So in the same time in the 80s, we had these two parallel themes from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. This idea of redemption, we're bringing it now, and this idea of reaching the world with the message of the Noahide laws. So it was very obvious the two are linked, and the link is very obvious because redemption means a time when the world accepts God, sees God, serves God. Not a few of us, the more righteous, the more spiritual, the more holy. No, the world. And within the world, Noahides represent the world far more than Jews do. So if God needs his world to acknowledge him, his world to accept him, his world to want him, very interesting that the final prayer we say, pray 3 times a day, and the final prayer for 3 times a day is a passage, like a paragraph. That's the world of the non-Jews. That's the world made holy by the Noahide. Like a half a page or so in the prayer book describing the times of redemption, which of course makes sense that we should end the prayers with that high note every day, 3 times a day, to end the prayers with this focus on the redemption. That's the ultimate point and purpose of it all. But within this discussion of the redemption, there's a lot of things you could say. Like you could talk about the resurrection of the dead. You could talk about all the sages of the past leading us and teaching us Torah. You could talk about the barren trees being fruitful. You could talk about eternal life. We don't talk about any of that in the prayer. What we talk about is how the entire world will recognize and serve God. That is what we say 3 times a day, focusing on Noahides, on a world of Noahides that are recognizing God, serving God, acknowledging God. And that's how we're expressing the wow, what's going to be with the redemption? Wow, what's special about the redemption? When the entire world will serve God, which means a world of Noahides. And similarly, in one of those primary lines of our faith, hear, O Israel, the Lord is Lord, the Lord is one. So the most foundational commentator on the scriptures, who's referred to as Rashi, Reb Shlomo Yitzchaki, says, what does that mean? Hear, O Israel, now the Lord is our God. But in the times of redemption, the Lord is one. The whole world is only going to be serving God. Which is, again, an amazing expression of how significant that is. But in this most pivotal statement of Jewish belief, according to Rashi, what are we saying? Now it's just the Jews. By redemption, the whole world is going to be serving God. Which highlights that Noahides are really, really, really significant as you're making it happen now. And of course, as you make it happen for yourself, you have a world of people you know and have a connection with that you can try to help them as well. That they should also be part of that process.